On this installment of Creative Cabin Fever, I travel to Belfast once more, which is pretty exciting, be able to travel in a pandemic, huh? Quinncidental is here with me today, Mr. Nice. He is about to release an EP. I have been following him since the start of my rambles around the park. His song came up on my Spotify, and I was like, this guy is cool. So I've been harassing him for an interview because I'm like, I love finding bands before everyone else knows about them. And I know this guy
Mm.
is going to be big because I love his sound. I love his everything, the words he uses, how he describes things, the way it all works together. It's fucking perfect. And I think everyone should be listening to you. To be honest, how are you this morning?
I am on top of it, loving it, completely loving it. It's a bit sunny out there, but I'm in here doing this interview and nothing better to do. So, yeah, have a good one.
Yeah, it's kind of nice actually, being able to interview all these artists during lockdown because I guess you guys have obviously the creative edge is still there, but you don't have really that much to do. So you're all like, yes, I'd love a conversation with another human being.
Yeah, it's like if I'm not scratching the walls, it's a scratch card. If I'm not scratching the card, then I'm scratching my eyeballs out. But I have a lot of stuff going on creative wise, and I'm like, I just need to get it out. But we're here, we're doing what we need to do and abiding by the law. But you know, there will definitely be a time and place where we can, get all our work done and all our needs met. But for now, an interview is probably the best thing that can happen. So here we are.
Here we are. And you've already released two incredible tracks in
Mhm,
this lockdown, and they're both fantastic. So you've got Mr. Nice and Quincidental.
mhm.
I love both of them. And you are about to release a four track EP called The
Yeah,
Rule of Three, which is going to be absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to hear. And that's coming out on the 29th of January. So
correct.
that's exciting. But before we get to that, I want to go to the base of you. So
Okay.
I'm really interested in how did you find your craft? How did you fall in love with hip hop? How did you find your voice? What inspired you to be where you are now and a bit of your musical past?
Ooh, interesting. So delving deep into the abyss. Um, we'll start off with craft. I guess from an early age, from about you hear this on Britain's Got Talent, you hear it on like loads of competitions. Everybody's all like, "Oh, I've been singing my whole life," and it's like, right, come on, you were singing at a certain stage, but at a certain age, you were just, it was just gibberish. But for me, I guess, I've been a show off, from young height. Love music growing up, completely love music growing up, and my main form of getting into music would have been through family. So a lot of my dad's interests, a lot of my brother's interests, maybe what my sisters and stuff were listening to. But it eventually then came to that point where my dad was like, you know what it is, fuck, we'll get him a guitar, we'll do it, we'll buy the acoustic, and if he doesn't play it, then whatever. So I got the acoustic guitar pretty early on. I was probably about 7 or 8, and then I'm sitting there holding it wrong and stuff, and trying to work out where fingers go, how to do a chord. And I passed out my brother Steve, and I was like, "Can you tune this for me again?" And he's like, "Would you leave me alone?" But so tried the guitar. I actually put it down for a while, and I was like, "It's not going to work." And then one day I watched School of Rock, and it was like a drum kit is. I was like, "That's amazing. I want to get behind a drum kit because." I don't know if I have a lot of aggression, being 5 foot, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I just want to get it all out. But yeah, so took a dive from playing guitar, went to secondary school, tried to start and learn drums. The lessons were kind of so I had to take it on my own accord to go up when I had free time. Um, but then once I was in secondary school, I started then picking up the guitar again through influence of friends and things like that. And you're at that age, early teens, and you want to be in a band. You want to be the center of attention a lot, and the reality, set in whenever you realized you give up guitar, you didn't practice it, now you're picking it up again, and you can't play it, So I had to then jog my memory, get things started to learn. So yeah, a lot of my craft comes from sort of more of a family value and their interest in music. Then met a lot of people who also were a little bit more advanced than what I was playing music, and that was almost a drive to want to do it even more. Um, then I guess, not to go back to the day of birth and lead up to now, but yeah, so from learning instruments, started getting into several bands, and realized that my music taste was just, it was on a constant wave, ever changing wave. So you're listening to all the smick tunes, all the hard style tunes on your phone, going straight over to like Lamb of God and Slipknot and stuff in the space of a week, and then realizing that not a lot of people like the same music as you. So whenever you're in a band, you can't just start screaming at people because they don't get it. So took a journey away from that slowly and started getting into like Springsteen, started getting into like Black Keys and that kind of feel. So more of a bluesy touch to playing guitar. And the more that I hung out with more people, my brother and his friends and so on, and played with them, I realized there was a nicer medium to get to when playing. So a good lot of years have helped me really sort of chisel away at the stuff that I don't want to do. And then I started probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, really kind of working on original music. So a lot of my musical interest then started to go towards acoustic tracks and started to go towards me trying to then interpret what the artists that I were listening to into the stuff that I want people to listen to as well. And yeah, just trying to give a little bit of backstory uh, through the use of original music. So it's been a long timeline to really like shorten it down. But yeah, my interest then, once I was in, I think it was like primary seven, first year, um, my friend Tiernan, he, you know, big rap to Tiernan, CB4L. So um, he got me really interested in hip hop. And it wasn't the case of, oh, do you want to listen to this? It was, you're listening to this, and we're going to listen to this whole album, and then we're going to listen to this whole album. And I'm like, oh, I was like, my interests were, completely out of the way at that point. I was like, okay, I accepted it and got listened to hip hop, and it it just blew my mind. It just started blowing my mind the more that I was discovering, the more that I was listening to, and his level of interest behind it, he was just pushing and pushing and pushing. And then it really took it did take quite some time, because from the point in which he first showed me hip hop to whenever I picked it up and started writing hip hop, um, there was so much stuff in between. I got into a band with the guy Luke O'Neill, who is the drummer for Buffalo Bay. Um, we created a two-piece that started off as busking, and we then eventually started getting gigs out of it. So as Capasso, we made a bit of a name for ourselves over the last, not 2020 there, because everything went to shit, but 3 years prior to that, up until that point, we were gigging, nearly every weekend, and making sure that we were doing that as frequent as possible, because it just gave us something to look forward to, but it also helped us, develop as musicians also. So yeah, I think from that kind of point, I started introducing hip hop into our cover sets. And we understood it was songs that you would listen to over and over again, just kind of covers that maybe some people get. And doing that, you're getting feedback from it. People are like, oh, that's class and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing it in American accent. I'm putting a persona of when I'm performing. So it's not really me. And I was like, but how do I start to do this without, your cliches, your stereotypes, your you're a white fella from Belfast. You're literally walking into a wall of slagging. You know what I mean? So um, yeah. So it took a bit of courage, and I think it really kicked off the start of 2019. I was writing, but it was like, doing it with American accent, and then I knew myself that it wasn't going to stick. It wasn't going to be something I could use. And then one day I was writing lyrics a couple of months down the line, just before summer, and I told the guy Joe, who is the guitarist in Enola Gay, and I was like, listen, I have some lyrics here. I used some samples. What do you think of this? And when I showed him, he went, he was like, that's fucking lovely, and in my head, I was like, I'm just sitting over a smoke and I'm writing down my thoughts. And to me, my thoughts can't, like, I don't necessarily like understand how impactful they could be maybe for somebody else that's listening or reading or whatever. But he took it on head first, and he was like, you're going to be the first person I produce hip hop wise. And I was like, well, this is strange. I was like, I don't know how to do this, but we'll give it a shot. And yeah, I think there was a period of time, where me and Joe were sitting there, and I was looking over my lyrics, and I was doing a couple of things, and Joe was like, nah, 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 nah. He's like, you're gonna need to rewrite this. He was like, just try this again, try this part. And it was, we were at each other's throats for the first while. It was just like, I was in the middle of recording, and then he's like, nah, nah, stop. And I'm screaming into the mic, just like, oh my God, just let me fucking record. And he's like, no, we need to do it properly. And I was like, okay. So through, there was this one week where I stayed over in his house for a good lock of days, and we really pushed. We pushed it out, and we got a lot of, the stuff that we need, some coming back and forward from it. But a lot of stuff that I learnt was through, any recording process that I've had. So with Joe, there was a lot of individual learning that I really needed to take hold of. But back in the day with my brother and stuff like that, there was, you have a whole band, so everybody can sort of help each other out. But that time round, I did it, and once we had sort of finalized the recording and got it, he was mixing and mastering and stuff like that for me. So we got that sorted, and then I just went, right, well, this is my first avenue into hip hop. I was like, it needs a video. We need some visuals. So ended up Adam Cooper, who is also in Enola Gay, wasn't until earlier just last year. But us being good friends, I was like, Adam, is there any chance that you can help me out here? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. You know what I mean? He's like, I know what I'm doing, but do you know what you're doing? And I was like, oh, fuck. Not really. Like, I can look into the camera, but I can't promise you a nice face, But yeah, so got the video done, waited for a bit to release it, because I was just like, I didn't know any business side to releasing music because I'd never done it before. And with Joe kind of, being ahead of the game with stuff that he was writing and recording, he was giving pointers even early on as to what to do releasing music. So kind of took Joe's steps and stuff, and uh, ended up getting Mr. Nice out through video release in October 2019. So looking at that, I kind of went, right, I need to push. I want more stuff. You get a bit of a buzz from it, and you're feeling great. And the track was doing quite well. Video was doing quite well. So I held off for a bit, then tried a touch of, collaboration recording in December. Didn't work out. And then this year, it was like a slow process up until about maybe May, June, probably June, where I then started, I messaged the guy, Peter Keogh from Laps, and he was like, yeah, well, I have a few songs here, if you need anything, then give me a shout. So he sent me a few like unfinished tracks, and I was like, okay, well, this one here is something I can write to. So I started writing, and it was very quick. It was in that night, I was sitting over a drink or whatever, and I was just like, put my thoughts down again on a bit of paper, and then I went to him, showed him the lyrics. He was pretty happy with it. We started taking a few sessions to lay stuff like that down, and then I heard this beat, and separate to laps, I heard the beat, um, acid rain, you call it, and over that instrumental, I started writing, and then it quickly became this thing where I went into my notes where I keep all my lyrics on my phone, and I found this one line, which was, "I have a message, but I'm too illiterate to give it." And I was like, "Fuck," that was a note back then. I was like, "I wonder if I could." And then I just went on and started writing the track. And once, once I got that track done, I showed it to Peter, and he was like, "Fucking bars, mate." Like he's just like, "Oh, that's class." And to me, I was like, "Well, let's get it laid onto the computer." So tried to do that. There was a few things that I was looking to do, and I had the Quinncidental track idea, like a demo of it, and we had the Laps demo sort of configured. Then lockdown hit, and we couldn't go back to recording again. So I was kind of like, this is a bit of a nightmare. How am I going to get music out frequently? And that's when he directed me to the fella Milo, who is the one that I met 4 years ago whenever I was on stage with Amy. And so ended up getting chatting to Milo, went up to his, and I was like, "Listen, I have a song or two that I need to record." And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine. We'll get it done." And he's like, "Plus, I make beats." So at that time, whenever I got in contact with Milo, he sent me beats also. And I started writing over one. And I was like, "Yes, we'll get this recorded." I was spearheading it and just trying to get everything sorted. At the same time, forgot to mention, at the same time, I was talking to this fella, Andrew Greer, who lives over in London. He's studying like music production and things like that as well. So he also was interested, in what I was doing, and he was more, he wanted to talk to me in order to kind of give me a bit of heads up and like pointers with business, and like sort of looking at what way I want to release music, and sort of how to put my craft forward so that people understand the whole narrative. So I got speaking to him. He sent me this beat as well, which is a beat that features on the EP that I wrote over, and that track's called Nostalgia. So he gave me this beat, and immediately I was like, this is the one that'll help me tie in the other two songs. And eventually through Milo, I recorded, I laid down the lyrics for Nostalgia and Quinncidental, and sent them both to Andrew, and he mixed and mastered the lyrics for Quinncidental, and then he mixed and mastered his own beat and the lyrics for Nostalgia. So had those two at the ready as well, had Mr. Nice, and then I was like, yes, this is me set. I'm ready for an EP, and you know, eggs in one basket sort of idea, and I just went, fuck it, I'll go for it. And yeah, so pushed it, and then got it set up, had my tracks sitting there, and then I was just, I was really tinkering with the idea of a concept. And then I was like, okay, well, nostalgia hits all the buttons of me being, young and youthful, so to speak. Mr. Nice being present has a lot of meaning behind, your current state of affairs, where your mental state is, being, friends with people or getting involved, and how included you are. And then Quinncidental, as sort of as upbeat as it is, it also touches points on, the first half of the song touches points on a previous relationship, and the sort of the nasty attitudes that happened in that, and sort of me then in the second verse of that song was like my progression from that, and sort of where I see myself. And once I had those three laid out, I was like, past, present, future, this is amazing. Looked up a concept for it, and I seen the rule of three. It could be translated in Latin for um, a different thing. So I looked it up, blah, blah, blah. I was happy with it. I was like, right, we're going with it. And then one day it hit me. I was like, it's not enough. I was like, there's literally not enough songs here, you know, because two's already released. One isn't strong enough to go with. So one day I got speaking to Milo. I was like, listen, I don't know if I'm freaking out about it. I was like, but I need another song. And I was like, have you any beats that I can use? Because I wanted to do sort of like interludes in the EP, but the way Spotify's algorithm works is if you try to cheat that system under a minute, it can scrub all your music and delete it. So had to get rid of that idea, which was upsetting enough. But got speaking to Milo, he gave me a beat that he actually, as a part of his first couple of beats, he gave me one of them was there anyway. So I was like, I'll use this, and within a day, I wrote the Rule of Three. So I had the music there on my phone, had the lyrics. Then that coming Monday, which was a scheduled thing for me and Milo to meet up. On the Monday, I went to his and I was like, listen, we're getting this laid down. I was like, this has to happen today. And I was like, because if we don't, then we're just gonna bat back and forward and we're not gonna know where we are. And sure as hell went up to Tribal King Studios, which is Milo's best friend Bart. He's working alongside him. And because of our last session where I paid Milo for his beat, Bart then decided, he was like, okay, we'll do this as a free session. We'll get you recorded. And I was happy. For the Rule of Three, I actually had to pay money that time. So I was like, we're getting in and we're executing this song like pronto. And, I have been considered as a producer's wet dream. Like I go into the studio and I do, yeah, just straight away. It's just like there's no messing about. And we nailed that song in about 2 hours. And like from having it just scripted the day before that week and then on the Monday just nailing it, I was over the moon because listening to it as well, I favoritize it a lot more than like even past releases. I love what I've done, but that element that I captured in the Rule of Three is essentially what I want to sound like. So there is that hip hop, there is that R&B, there's that kind of, there's harmonies, there's a nice little feel for where my influences dip in. And yeah, it feels like I've just
That was amazing. That was amazing because you gave me like a complete rundown of how this all started, where we're at, how we got to where we're at. So, like a few things, I've been taking notes and paying very close attention to what you're saying. So don't be worried. I think that was amazing. You did it great.
thank you.
The wonderful thing about hip hop to me, right? So I adore hip hop. I grew up in France. So when I was in my early teens, I was big into things like I Am, who then work with Wu-Tang Clans. It opened my whole entire world into like really old school, deadly shit, right? But hip hop, people are like, oh, hip hop is just a genre. Actually, hip hop, considering how many samples they use, is one of the most genre fluid genres there ever was,
Yeah.
because it's just ever evolving, ever changing. The one thing that is certain about hip hop is the fact that lyrics and how they're delivered and how they actually touch your soul, that's very genre specific. And I adore that you use your accents. That was one of the main pulls for me. I was like, this guy is being himself, delivering a message effortlessly and just doing him. And that's what I want to see more of in the industry.
Yeah.
I'm sick of everyone copying everyone. Like, it's just, there's no point. Just be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Like, literally, everyone else is taken.
Yeah, definitely. On that point, I think there's certain elements where my Capasso side comes to light. I don't know how to sing in a Northern Irish accent. I'm sorry. Like there's a few people that can do it, and fair enough. But if I heard myself singing in a Northern Irish accent, I would die on the spot. I would just be like, oh no, like I'm not too comfortable with it, but I know that I've trained myself to sing a certain way. So whenever I do, naturally, it'll sound different. It'll sound sort of American, but you know, um, taking the accent on, that was a part of me and Joe's battle when we recorded Mr. Nice. It was sort of like Joe really telling me how to pronounce words. I don't know on the scale of dyslexia. I don't know where I sit, but whenever it comes to like producing lyrics and things like that, I really need to think it out. So pronunciation is a main form of that communication too, whenever it comes to, especially in your own accent, Northern Irish accent. You know, a lot of people are like, I don't even like watching the news because you hear people talking about, you know, simple stuff, but it's just that accent that bleeds through. You know, it's just like I was really uncomfortable with it in the start. Then once he sort of he pushed me to get that accent down, I started to become comfortable with it because I knew that there was a certain dynamic, there was a certain tone to my vocal recording Mr. Nice that didn't sound, you know, too smacked out or anything. Like I can move my jaws no. Like I wasn't too sort of nasally with it, you know, it wasn't bad. And for me, that's, you know, that's something that's important, is being able to sound like myself. But you know, Mr. Nice was a bit more of a challenge because it almost comes across as more of a spoken word kind of rap. So I think there was a lot of danger there where, you know, my sort of habits of like slipping into a different accent were going to happen. But then Joe was just like, just stick with it, do the voice that you fucking grew up with. And he went and just own it. He's like, nobody wants to hear you doing anybody else's accent. I was like, you know what, fair enough. So yeah, the development came from Mr. Nice.
And I think it's wonderful. I think you raised a really good point. It's true. A lot of people learn to sing a certain way. Like I follow a German artist. She cannot speak English, but you wouldn't know it when she sings. Like she has the best accent ever when she sings. And I was like, this is bonkers.
Yeah.
Or like similarly enough to you, during lockdown, I fell in love with a band from Donegal. Like they are just incredible. Their name is Blackbird and Crow. And the
Okay.
main reason I fell in love with them is Mairead sings in her Donegal accent. And like
Yeah.
you could just listen to that all day. Like
Yeah. There's something, I think there's something really beautiful about an Irish sort of accent, you know what I mean? Especially in song, you're just like, hairs in the back of your neck standing up and all, you're like, this is great, you know, really getting into it. It is a breath of fresh air. Yeah, I just think that the way that sort of Northern Ireland is perceived, the way Belfast is perceived, you know, if you're going to do a Northern Irish accent, normally it's through the likes of punk, you know what I mean, or that punk scene back in the day, or you know, people have channeled into listening to people acoustically singing in a Northern Irish accent, or even having that twang, because I know that what's kind of standing out for the likes of Dermot Kennedy at the moment is that in his songs they sound, you know, very poppy, generically poppy and things like that, but he also has that southern twang that comes through, and it just draws him back to where, you know, he's from. And that's something, the only way that I kind of like I was able to do that was through the use of hip hop, because I can't sing in that way. But you know, even with that, I showed him the tune a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, he's sort of like, you know, one of those ones where, you know, your dad sort of sits and puzzles, and he's like listening to it, he's like, I mean, I like the singing, you know, and then he goes, but when you go into, you know, your own accent, it's a bit, you know, it's a bit hard to listen to. And I was like, thanks. You know, I was like, well, this music's being released. So, but he's like, if it was in an English accent or if it was an American accent, it would be a lot easier to, you know, to listen to. And I was kind of like, I get what you're saying, but that's because you're so used to it. You get into your car, the moment you get into your car, the moment you turn on Spotify, the majority of stuff that you're getting is either English or American. It's like, well, this is why I'm here to put a bit of change to that. You know what I mean? As one of a very vast amount of people in Belfast that do hip hop as a main genre, I'm just one of those people that are trying to tie in a lot of the stuff that I'm doing with more modernized approach, and trying to in some way, you know, sort of commercialize that so that people understand that it's possible to do that if you want to. But yeah, the accent has been a troubling thing for a while, but I'm over it. I'm over it. I just do it now. It's natural to me. So I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm at that point.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And I would be completely against your dad's opinion in the fact that I understand we're all conditioned to see things a certain way now, but it's so non-refreshing to see someone being themselves,
Yeah.
and I think that's brilliant. Whatever you decide to do is completely up to you. You know what I mean? But for now, I think your journey is it's incredible. So we were asking quite people to ask us questions. So I only have one more question for you before I go, because I think we've managed to cover everything incredibly. And I think everyone at home is going to be very, very excited on the 29th of January when the Rule of Three finally hits, because it sounds amazing. And the two tracks that it released already, I just adore them. So I'm very excited
Thank you.
my
Thank you.
end. But the question that was asked was for you, if you could please recommend acts that you like in your hood. So who should I be paying attention to in your neck of the woods?
Ooh. Well, let me think. Have I wrote this down? Have I wrote enough down?
It's a hard one. It's a hard one.
I do have a few people. So straight off the bat, we'll have Enola Gay. Great band, very, very progressive band. Very, very underlooked for what they're doing, for their level of progression, for their, their ability to take something that's very touchy for some people and turn it into art so that people understand their viewpoint. Um, Obviously, it's a setup of great mates, and I've known these guys, I've been in bands with these guys, and yeah, even in the earlier stages of Enola Gay, I was there to sort of give a bit of an input as well when it came to starting off the songs and whatever. Um, yeah, so fantastic band locally. I would also say the likes of Mount Palomar, which he's got that real creative sort of like electronical sound, and his songs are, I don't know, they're just amazing. See, being out at a nightclub and you have Mount Palomar playing at his gigs and stuff like that, like it's blown my mind, his progression and his sound, especially in such a vast local scene. um I would also say, tying into the likes of hip hop, uh somebody for the accent, a very, very prominent accent, that is this guy Steve Locke. And is he is releasing music more times than I can blink. He's just track after track after track, and yeah, literally every time I blink, there's a new album. But like, he's a lovely guy. I've met him a couple of times, and like his progression is something to definitely look out for as well. He's crafting his sort of way with hip hop, and yeah, he's been knocking out bangers recently. Um, to take a spin from the likes of hip hop, or outside of that kind of box, the likes of Amy Montgomery. I've been friends with Amy for years. Fantastic voice, incredible band, and amazing, crafting with music, and obviously making waves at the minute. So I'm one that doesn't need to give them that plug, but there it is. I'd also say a band that's been going for quite some time, whenever I was gigging too, is Heel of Achilles. So they're a lot, they're a lot heavier, but they have been working on their craft really, really well. And within the last year, they released their latest album, and yeah, I got a bit of merch from it, and I was rapping the merch and stuff like that, because they're legends. All the lads, they're all good. Um, and then there are so many names. I'd say one that's springing to my mind is who I'm working with at the minute. So Tribal King Studios was a thing that I mentioned. Uh, that's made up of me, Milo, who he makes the beats. Bart, he's also a producer. He does the mixing and mastering. Uh, the guy Paul, and the guy Paddy. So we're all like a tightly knit sort of group of five where we're making these podcasts. We're also recording tunes together, and we'll have a few things coming as well. So local scene is massive. At the end of the day, if I haven't named, anybody and they're watching this, I do apologize, but everybody's legends, all friends, and I'm glad to see that everybody is, progressing at such a stage for even where we are at this minute in time this year. So yeah, so big rep to all the people in the music scene and all friends. You're all legends.
That was a wonderful succession of shout outs, and I'll ask you to send me an email with all those so I can properly look into them myself.
Yeah. one more shout out, sorry.
Okay.
Favorite shout out at the minute as well is Kneecap. Kneecap are the shit. They are lads, they are proper lads, good friends,
I bought a hat. I went to look for it this morning to put it on for your interview, actually, because I love them. I met them on my birthday 2 years ago in Waterford. They played. It was incredible. They're all so sound, and I loved being there. It was incredible. But I have this Kneecap hat that I got. But I was looking for it this morning, and my boyfriend rings me, and he's wearing it. So my boyfriend steals my merch.
Unbelievable. I think the best thing about that, though, as well, with what you were saying earlier on, tying people being tied together. There's Kneecap, who actually did a video that introduced Enola Gay for their I was going to say Eurovision, but it's not Eurovision. It's the gig that they recently done that's being broadcast. I think it's on the 15th of January, 16th of January. But us being all tightly knit in that way within the local scene, you have Kneecap representing Enola Gay representing other people in the scene too. And this is the kind of platforms that we need. This is what you're doing is amazing, because it gives us a place to empty our heads musically. So yeah, I'm pretty happy for that. So thank you very much for taking the time.
And thank you for giving me your magic, because that's what this is about. So the platform's only as good as the guest, and you were a fantastic guest. I'm going to stop recording now. You've been wonderful, and we'll get back to our chats off screen.